Hi there. This video is going to focus on how to add a mandatory read in WordPress for the intranet. We're also just going to quickly look at how you would access mandatory reads and how they kind of look on the front end of the intranet, and then, like I say, the maintenance of that within WordPress. So as you can see, I'm just on the home page at the moment, and up in the right-hand corner, you'll see that there's a little bell icon. So what will happen is when you do get mandatory reads, they will be in here. So this is essentially your inbox, your mandatory reads. And just to let you know that there's something coming up, there will be a little red indicator to let you know that there's something in here that needs reading, especially when a new mandatory read has been applied to the intranet. So now that I'm in mandatory read, you can see that we have read and unread mandatory reads. And it's just to indicate this is going to be something that each individual person, this will obviously be different. So one person may have read them all, one person may still have them to read. So it's going to automatically update itself to each individual user. Essentially, the mandatory reads are just things that the trust need to let people know about. Obviously, at the minute, these are for testing purposes, but similarly to how we've looked at other elements of the intranet, such as your promotions, your news, things like that, especially news that you essentially stick into the very top of the screen. Mandatory reads it works in quite a similar way, whereby it's information that the entire trust needs to know. So if I just click into one of these, you can see that we have some information in here. So your mandatory read, you've got a title, you've then got your content. You can add an excerpt to a mandatory read if you want to, but they are optional. So just to go into the back end of WordPress, I'm already in the mandatory reads post type, and you can see that we've got a couple in here already. Some are examples. Essentially what you want to do is when you want to go in and add a new mandatory read, you would click this top button. And then, as I mentioned, you would just start to add your content. So similar to the other post types like pages, services, etc., you would just add your title, add your content, and you're pretty much good to go. So I'm just going to put, again, example mandatory read, and just a sentence in there. Now, you can still apply blocks and everything like that, like you can on any other post type. So you can add different things in here. Again, you can add images, you can add videos if you need to. You can add, specific blocks to highlight important information, especially if it's a long mandatory read. So then I'm just going to go back into the settings. And again, as I've mentioned, we can add an excerpt in here if we want. And I'm just going to add one in for this. In there. And then, as I've mentioned, there's not much else you would need to do editing wise in regards to your mandatory read. Obviously, your mandatory reads, there might be specific things that you need to let people know about in the trust. So again, just to try and give a bit of an example, it could be that there's a specific piece of information that you need to signpost people to other areas of the intranet, or it might be, again, your external website. So feel free to add links into your mandatory reads as well. It could be that people need to read more information out about a specific service or a change of something that's happened within the organization. So you can add links and buttons in there as well if need be. Then when you're happy with your mandatory read, again, you can just go ahead and publish. Similarly to how we have looked at some of the other post types, you can also publish for a date in the future. So if you've come in and add a mandatory read, but it doesn't need to go live till next Thursday, then you can set that publish date to be something else in the future. That way you don't need to come back in and then publish it. It's going to publish it for you automatically at that date and time. Now that my mandatory read's published, I'm going to go back into the intranet, and you can see, don't know if you saw that then, it's just quickly gone because I've clicked out of it. But essentially there was a number 1 in red, just to indicate that there's another unread mandatory read available for us to look at. So in my unread now, we've got the example mandatory read. We then have the excerpt, so a little bit more information about what the mandatory read entails. Clicking into there, we now have our little bit of text as well. So as I mentioned, you can link people to other areas of the intranet. You can link them to the external website or anywhere else they need to go to find out more information. Pretty straightforward, the mandatory reads, but if you do have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. Otherwise, that's everything. Thank you very much.